February the 2nd, the independent journal 444.hu broke a story about a presidential pardon for a man who helped to cover the crime of his boss, the director of a state-run orphanage. The scandal turned out to be a huge deal. It snowballed in the public opinion in the following days, giving the Orbán and his Fidesz party the greatest political headache in many, many years. Even though the president was forced to step down, as well as Minister of Justice who endorsed this pardon, it didn't stop people to come out to the street and express their anger at Orbán administration.
Bad on Fidesz! Bad on Fidesz! Bad on Fidesz! Bad on Fidesz!
On February 16th, tens of thousands of mainly young people gathered on Heroes Square in the center of Budapest to protest against Orbán administration. 3 weeks after the protest, the Heroes Square in Budapest is silent and empty. Is the Orbán administration going to survive the scandal? How and if is it going to affect Hungarian politics and upcoming local and European elections?
I was doing newsroom. When you're doing newsroom, you need to follow the news from all around the world. You also have to cover the letters from viewers. And one of the letters stated that President Katalin Novák gave presidential pardon to a man who was involved in a crime against children. He tried to cover his boss's pedophile crimes. It was a huge case in 2016. We needed to check the source who stated that, and as soon as I could validate it, I wrote the article, and that happened.
Kiszolgáltatottak mellé a magyar embereket!
Very soon it turned out that this man and the director of the childcare home who committed the pedophile crimes, these two men had important political connections with Fidesz, with the ruling party of Hungary and its leader.
The Prime Minister had to distance himself from this case, and I think that's why he made the decision, to make the president step down as soon as possible.
We had much bigger scandals before, and that small case at the end of the day results on resigning of the president of the country, the resigning of the leader of European parliamentary election from the governmental party, and even from a church leader. Even the experts are searching for what's happened in this case and why it became so big.
You've been walking around Budapest for the last couple of weeks. Everybody has been talking about that. Everybody. It's because it's not only a scandal, but it's also a huge question mark.
Könyvek befóliázása, a könyvesboltok büntetése, a melegek örökbefogadása.
The biggest problem in Hungary now is the apathy. The people doesn't want to be involved in politics, but 2 weeks ago the demonstration was initiated by 9 influencers who run a highly watched different YouTube channels. And they were really successful to touch those youngsters who are not interested in politics, but they realized that something is going in a wrong way in Hungary, and they went out to the street to stand up against the government and to support the child rights in Hungary.
In Hungary, the opposition parties are extremely weak, absolutely incapable of mobilizing the people. It's a kind of a worldwide phenomenon, and you can describe this phenomenon with the expression, the crisis of representation. YouTubers, content creators, singers joined their forces and stood up and asked the people to please come and raise your anger and raise your voice and show to the power that this is unacceptable.
We have 3 months until elections.
I think It will somewhat affect Fidesz in a negative way in terms of their core voters, but not dramatically. Don't forget that we will have like sort of a parallel elections this year, so it means that the same day we will be voting on the European Parliament list, and local government takes place at the same time.
Okay.
Fidesz, they only put emphasis on the European Parliament elections. It also gives them like an opportunity to talk about their core values and their whole political agenda, which is like trying to attack Brussels and the European Commission for their policies and the European Union as a whole on their policies against Russia. The whole thing is about the Prime Minister and his party. It's about voting for him or against him. So I don't see any special significance of these elections this year, I have to tell you. So I can't imagine a result that could possibly damage the power of Fidesz in the country.
If the election will held next week, I am sure that they will have problems. But they still have 3 months to reunite the voters, and they are very professional for it. So I'm afraid the Fidesz will not lose the elections. They will have the most of European Parliament members sent to Brussels. And maybe in some cities they will feel that Fidesz became weaker and they will lose some mayor places, but it will be not a considerable amount of that.
Listening to all the interviews, one can't help but wonder, is it at all possible for Hungarian opposition to beat Fidesz?
They're not that popular in terms of numbers. So they have like core voters around 1.5 million or 2 million. Less than 10 million people are living in Hungary. But because of the election law, you don't need that much of voters in order to maintain your power. Many of these people who are still voting for Fidesz, they have been voting for them for like 10, 15, maybe 20 years. Many of them are truly believers. And this is why Fidesz is they're always talking to their own people, mostly. They always want to condition these 1.5 or 2 million people. And if they can do that, and they can do that, well, it's very difficult to break their power.
Én is megyek több helyre is, Klár is megy több helyre is.
One of the other reasons it's very difficult to break the power of Fidesz is that if you look at the structure of the opposition parties, we have DK, which is the biggest opposition party, ruled by Mr. Ferenc Gyurcsány, who's the most unpopular politician in the country. So it's also a very comfortable situation for Fidesz.
At this moment in Hungary, it's extremely high the undecided voters. So like 40% of the people, the surveys shows that they don't have a party.
This is a serious crisis. I mean, this is a crisis of democracy, that not a single opposition party is capable of unite all the fragmented parties. There is not a single person who would be credible enough to join all of these forces and form a new, organizational form for the opposition.
The opposition is weak. They are not present in countryside. They don't have messages for countryside people. Hungary is a countryside country. 6 million people are living in the countryside, and the oppositional parties are not present in their life.
Orbán is not as popular as he thinks he is, and I think that in the upcoming years he has to face new form of challenges which he is not prepared to deal with. New parties can emerge, new movements can emerge, new type of unions can emerge, and maybe all of these people who are frustrated by the government maybe will understand that the most important point in order to build up any kind of a coalition, any kind of a strong, vital, feasible force against the government is to build institutions. Orbán is still defeatable in the current system.
Fidesz is not that popular amongst young voters, that's true. But I think Fidesz tries to deter people, and yet the younger generations from politics. What they do is that they want to convince people not to involve into politics, and this is their message for the younger generations as well. So it's like if you don't want conflict, don't come to politics. The most talented people, gifted people in Hungary, they would never go to politics because it has such a huge price. It's a very hostile environment, and so that's why, you know, the most gifted people in Hungary, they either do go to the financial sector or leave the country.
It all sounds rather bleak. Fortunately, I am still able to talk with independent journalists while doing that report. But how is it going to be in the future? Journalists, civil society leaders are afraid of new sovereignty law which was recently passed by Hungarian parliament. How is it going to affect their work? Do you, for example, and your organization feel threatened by it in any way?
The upcoming months will give us an answer of how they want to use these bodies. If they want to come after us, if they want to, they can. I mean,
That's a loaded gun on the table. They already have all of these assets, tools in their disposal in order to threaten or even go after these organizations. But my assumption is that during this fall, during this autumn, there will be new forms of pressure making against these forces, because that's obvious that this form of government is keen to find always new and new forms of putting pressure on its opponents, even if they are not running for an office. They would go after us and after all of these other organizations as much as they can, but not with, open brutality. So there will be no violence against us. There will be no open threats against us. There will be bureaucratic methods.
Advertising market is totally controlled by the government, so we don't have advertising. We are sued many times if we are writing about something about Fidesz oligarch or the governmental dirty businesses. So we are under pressure. They have their secret services. So without a judge permission, they can surveil even the journalists' phones. They can do investigative, and they are not reporting to anybody. So we don't know yet what they will do, but it's a real threat to independent journalism, not to us only, for every independent journalist, but we are absolutely sure that they will focus especially to us. They were saying in the war times, the traitors has to be executed, and we will decide when the wartime it comes. And I was named, and some of my colleagues was named, that those are the traitors, and we will decide when the wartime it comes. I'm used to say to my colleagues that we are happy because we are not in Turkey to be jailed, we are not in Russia to be falling out from a window, but we are getting step by step closer.